Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to another edition of Tech Talk Live. Today's special guest, Lauren Wireman with Wildflowers. Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning. Hi, everybody.
So I'm quite sure that everybody has to know who you are. They just have to. If not, they are hidden under a rock somewhere in the nail industry. And so I look forward to not only resharing your story with everybody who already knows you and we're connected, on maybe the new ones that maybe don't know your story and how you got started, because you are living the nail tech dream. We all feel, at least I do. And so I look forward to sharing this today. I was excited. For those of you that don't know, if you went to nail camp just a few months ago, Lauren and I were both there. And so it was just a great, I don't know, just a great getaway. And we were talking yesterday in our pre-live how we just have that urge where we want to go do it again and again and again. And, where our commonality is where we want to educate and get the right proper education out there. But um, anyways, well, Lauren, let's start this. Let's go way back to when you decided that you wanted to get into the beauty industry. What was your motivation? How did you get started?
Well, that's kind of a funny story. It's really funny because my mom's in the other room, like over the wall, and she's going to be hearing me tell this story. Which I'm sure she has a very different perspective on the whole thing. But I was very artistic growing up, and I ended up going to college for art. And I got there, and I was disappointed to find out that I had to do math and science and history and all those classes, when I went to college for art. So my GPA was like a 0.9, I think, after spending the year at school. And it wasn't because I'm stupid, it's because I just hated going to class. And I would turn in all my assignments and I'd take all my tests, but I would never show up to class. So long story short, when I got home from college, my parents were like, well, what are you going to do with your life? And I was like, I don't know. So I called my friends and I was like, what do you guys think I should do? And they were like, you should go to beauty school. And I was like, okay. So like 5 days later, my parents, helped me get enrolled in beauty school in downtown Pittsburgh. And so that was how the journey began. I hated nails. I really didn't. I mean, I liked doing my own nails growing up, but as far as like, I didn't understand why anybody would want to be a nail tech or do nails. So, um, I really excelled in beauty school. I loved doing hair. I got a good job after beauty school. And then everything in my life sort of started falling apart and unraveling. And I struggled when I was in my teenage years with bipolar and panic attacks and all sorts of psychological problems. So, by the time I got to be, I guess I was probably like 20, I'd figured out, how to self medicate. So I started doing drugs and things like that, and I just got to a point where, I felt like I had everything in my life under control for the first time ever, except, I didn't have a boyfriend or a husband. And I was like, wow, that's all I need and my life will be complete. And so, I met a guy and he was young and he ended up dying, like right in front of me. It was very, very traumatic what happened. And that sent me into a really bad downward spiral. And I didn't want to go back into the beauty industry when all of this happened. I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to do something completely different. And for whatever reason, I kind of stuck through it because it was the only thing I could do that paid better than minimum wage. And so I ended up, working at like a Supercuts or somewhere just because my best friend worked there. And finally, at the end of it all, I mean, I got so bad into the drug addiction that I was like completely homeless and on the streets doing what I had to do to get drugs. And I ended up in a homeless shelter. And when I was in the homeless shelter, they were like, give your life to Jesus. And I was like, what? And then I was like, well, maybe it'll be like Sister Act, you know, because like I like music and I'm good at arts and crafts and stuff. So I thought, well, I'll try it. Like I felt like I tried everything else. I was probably like 21 at this point, and I felt like I tried everything else to kind of get my life together and to find happiness and wholeness, and I just couldn't find it. And so I thought, well, I'll try this crazy Jesus stuff and, you know, give it a shot and see what happens. And so part of that process is really surrendering every area of your life to God. And in that, it's funny because I was like, okay, like when it comes to the compartment of like, where am I going to work? I was like, okay, God, I'll work anywhere but, you know, in the beauty industry.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I'm sure that's not how that works. You know, it's not how surrendering works at all. And I'm sure God just laughed at me because he knew what he wanted to do with my life. And so the only door that opened was at a salon. And so the only girl I could hang out with, because I was trying to be clean and sober, was the nail girl. And her name was Michelle. She was amazing. And she's like, let me teach you how to do nails. And I was like, I don't want to do nails. Like, I hate nails. And she's like, but you're so artistic. Like, you'd be really good. So I let her teach me a little bit of this and that. And I remember that it was a bunch of like ladies who think that nail art is hooker nails. So it wasn't like going to be fun for me. And I remember the Steelers, it was in Pittsburgh and the Steelers were going to the Super Bowl. So I made a poster that was like Steelers nail art, $1. That was the only time those ladies would get nail art on their nails. And I put it shampoo girl. So I put it up above the shampoo girl, the shampoo bowl. And every time I was shampooing, they'd be staring at my nail art sign. So that was really how I got started actually doing nails. And thankfully, I already had the cosmetology license from years prior, you know, so I didn't have to go back to school or anything. And so I kind of just had to figure out everything on my own from there. It was really hard to find education for people who already had a license, like a cosmetology license. And so that was really how I got like started into the nail industry.
Wow. You know, if you guys have ever taken any of Lauren's classes, her testimony, she speaks it, and I know a lot of people can relate to your life and what you've gone through. And thank goodness that we have a career that we do, that I know even with me, I didn't go through the same kind of things that you did, but I know I would be considered unreliable right now. I would be, but I'm not. It's just, something else that has held us back from being our best selves. And so we can take a break and we can come back, and sometimes we can rebuild those same clientele. So the flexibility that we have of this career over the long haul has been such a blessing for me. And in your case, the same thing.
Yeah.
So when you went to school for cosmetology, obviously you probably just had of nails education. So did the other girls just kind of mentor you into that, or how did you get the ongoing education for the nails?
All we had to do in school was paint the one nail red, center, side. That's it. That's
Right.
all we learned how to do was to pass our boards, of course. So from there, Michelle at the salon taught me how to do just a basic manicure because that was all she did. She didn't do, gel polish didn't exist yet. So all she did was nail polish manicures. And so that was what she taught me. And my boss wanted me to learn enhancements. I did not want to learn enhancements. Like I was happy making nail polish. And I was like, I don't want to do enhancements. But she sent me to a CND class. And I remember, when you're a new nail tech, you look in the drawers and there's this like hodgepodge of stuff. And I'm like, what are these stickers for? Like, I would put them on my nose, the nail forms, because we used to have those helicopters that would fall from the trees. And they reminded me of the little helicopters, and you'd peel them apart and stick them on your nose. So, I didn't understand when I got to that class. I was like, oh, that's what these are for. But I was so bad. I went to the class by myself. So I got partnered, with the girl in the back that nobody wants to be partnered with. And she couldn't see. She had like Coke bottle glasses. And I was bloody, at the end of class. And I took really good notes, though. I knew this was all way beyond my scope of understanding at that point because I was so new. But I still have my notes to this day. And it's so funny because every now and then I come across them. And one of the things that I wrote in this CND class, they used to make us write our goals. And one of my goals was to be able to do a full set of nails in less than 2 hours. not even sculpts, just like a set of nails in under 2 hours. And I found it probably, I want to say, I don't know, maybe 8 years later, and just laughed when I saw, my goals for myself, because I had so far exceeded those. But that was where I started. I got back. I was so intimidated because there was nobody to help me. I mean, there was no one to help me. I met my husband, who was pastoring a church, and ended up moving to Ohio and pastoring a church for 4 years. So I packed up my nail stuff in a little box. I set it on a shelf. I wanted to throw it away so many times just because I'm not a pack rat. And every time I'd go to throw it away, I was like, I could hear God saying, don't do it, don't do it. And I was like, oh, but like it's clutter. And so anyway, I held on to my little shoebox of nail stuff, and we ended up moving to Florida eventually, and I became a cosmetology teacher, which was awesome. And so as I was teaching cosmetology in Florida, I noticed that like everybody wears hooker nails in Florida. Like everybody was doing nail art and wearing the crazy, like you're not cool if you don't have nail art in Florida. Like it's the thing in Florida. And this was 10 years ago. So for me, I was like, whoa, this really combines like a level of artistry with the nails. And now I'm actually interested. So I started just watching YouTube. And the only people on YouTube back then it was like Robin Moses. So I watched a lot of Robin Moses's videos, and Organic Nails, which is like a branch sort of Young Nails, had just started putting out Spanish videos. So I would turn the volume all the way down, and I would open my eyes like as wide as I could open them to try to absorb what was happening. And so I just had to figure everything out pretty much on my own. And it was hard. At the same time, they had made me the nail instructor at school. So it was like every time I would get a revelation, or every time I would figure something out, I would go right into the school and be like, oh my gosh, you guys, let me show you what I figured out. So it was kind of backwards, but also really cool at the same time. So I had to just figure out most of it on my own.
Yeah. And so many of us have to, but it's getting the proper education, because as we well know, what YouTube has today is not the proper education. You have to be very picky and choosy who you can follow and get the true details. They always seem to like skip a specific step, but they say that's because it's for the pros. Well, unless they specifically say that. I know I interview many people, and they always say, oh, I don't give everything out there. But people don't know that. So they follow exactly what you did, and they're not getting the same results. And so, yeah. So I love that
I'm
you said earlier.
glad. Yeah, I'm glad that I'm not trying to learn nails now, because there was such a tiny little limited amount of nail stuff back then that I was doing everything I could to watch the video 20 times to absorb everything I could. Now it's the complete opposite extreme. You've got contradictory information, you've got information overload, you've got people who are not teaching the right thing but have huge followings because of their personalities. You've got, the people who are teaching the right thing with hardly any followers because their stuff's considered boring, even though it's right. So it's like, I'm glad that I'm not floundering out there right now trying to figure out stuff, because I feel like you're almost better in a starved situation than you are in an overloaded one where you're like, I don't even know where to begin. And it's like, this cluster of like a buffet of information, and it doesn't always work out well.
I always know that our past, the little things that we learn along the way, help us not only relate with other people, but it sets us up for our future. And so, like, if we would have asked you when you first started, oh, are you going to own your own nail company? You're going to be traveling the world educating. You would have been like, yeah. What? Yeah. And so I love that you said that you had this little box of nail supplies. So at some point in time, you started adding to that arsenal of supplies and throughout the years. And so how did you get into the part where you quit educating for the school and then started branching out from there?
Well, I was teaching at the school, and I understand the school structure. I understand, like, I was taught in Bible college. I ended up going to Bible college, and I learned a lot of good, like, life lessons in Bible college. And one of the things that we learned about was authority and submission. And when you're put in a situation of authority and submission, if your job is to submit to whoever is in authority over you. Even if they're corrupt, like, or doing things wrong, when you're in that situation, it's like, then you have to make a moral decision. Am I going to go against the person in authority over me, or am I just going to like shut my mouth and stay in the lane that I'm supposed to? So in a school situation, it's tough because I'm a passionate nail tech, right? So I want to teach what the students want to learn. I want to teach what's relevant. I want to teach all of this. But from the perspective of a school owner, their only obligation is to meet what the state and what the accreditation board, if it's accredited, is requiring of them.
Yeah.
They don't have to go above and beyond that. So for me, understanding from their perspective, it sort of like created a box almost. And I felt very boxed in. But at the same time, I wasn't going to start a revolution because it didn't make sense to do that. I thought, if I want to have the power and authority to make the decisions about what products I'm using, what techniques I'm teaching, what curriculum I'm using, how the program's structured, rather than me trying to fight a battle that's dumb, why don't I just start my own program? And so that was the point where I realized, like, this isn't a battle that it makes sense for me to fight. I'll let them be and let them keep on doing what they're doing. But I'm going to step away from this and I'm going to try my hardest to get a school started. So I left the school I was at. There were, and I tell horror stories because, I traveled across the country 3 times last year. And I visited schools all over the place. And these horror stories are happening in every school, every single school. Especially if it's a nail program and a cosmetology program, you're like shuffled off into a corner. You don't have the same, because it doesn't generate the same income that a cosmetology program generates. So
Right.
most of the time, all of these like horror stories are happening everywhere. So it's not even really worth me going into detail about, but I'm sure everybody can imagine the situations, that are getting hit that isn't worth, what they're paying for it, like da 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 da, on and on. The typical situation. So because of that, I stepped back. I didn't know how to write a business plan. I was like, my dad was like, go to smallbusiness.gov or sba.gov and it tells you. And I mean, that's always how my dad's been with me. He's like, you want to do it? Here's the resource. Read it, learn it, figure it out, watch videos, but that's how you learn. So I did that. I wrote a business plan. I figured that I would need about $25,000 to be able to get the thing off the ground. And I didn't have that kind of money. And so I thought, well, I've got to either pitch it to like a bank, pitch it to my dad, pitch it to somebody, possible investors. Like, I don't know, but I've got to get this together and get my business plan together. So I did all of that and I kept praying about it. And, I just felt like it wasn't the right time. Like, it was funny. I really felt like it was God saying, like, no, you have to build a reputation first, because the advertising budget for the big schools in my area is 25 grand, like just for advertising. So how are people going to know who I am starting my school? So I thought, well, shoot. I was like, darn it, like you think you like make a plan and have it figured out, and God's just like and redirects the whole thing.
Yep.
So, all right. So I said, well, I'll do nails for like 2 years locally, but that's it. Like after 2 years, I'm done. I'm starting the school. And so that's exactly what I did. I started doing nails. And in the meantime, I found the Next Top Nail Artist competition that Nails Magazine does. And I said, okay, I'm going to enter this competition, not because I feel like I need to prove something to somebody, not because I knew I was pretty good at nails at that point. It was because I knew it was going to give me the connections in the industry that I needed to be able to open a school. And so I entered the competition. I was also too scared to do in-person comps because I always envisioned myself doing them and like being like trapped in this little like arena and then being like, oh my God, and getting like explosive diarrhea. And then like, everything you work so hard for is gone. So I just, like, that's not the competition for me. I like this one. You take the pictures, you make the videos, you submit it. I can handle that. Until I got to the end. I wasn't expecting to get to the end of it. And at the end, they flew me out to California. Um, and that was terrifying for me because of anxiety, because I don't like flying. I don't like getting on planes. I don't like traveling. I like my house, and I like places where I like go all the time that are safe places, and going out of my comfort zone is just still to this day not something that I enjoy that much. It's hard. It's one of those things I know everybody battles with stuff internally. All of us do. That's constantly my battle, is pushing myself to travel when I don't like to because of anxiety and stuff. So anyway, I got out there. In the meantime, it had been like a year and a half. So I was like, all right, had done my 2 years. Like, now I'm getting the school together. So I had started already doing classes, mentoring people. And I wanted to go to the show in Tennessee, and I wanted to just have a class. And the lady who ran it was like, no, you can't just have a class, you have to have a product. And I was like, well, what? I don't want to have products. Like, I just want to teach. And she's like, no, you have to have products. And I was like, so
I know, that's why I don't get to go to a lot of shows. Exactly that, the restrictions.
yeah. So, and I get it though. That's the authority submission thing too. Like, it's her show. She makes the rules. I'll respect it, or else if I don't agree with it, I won't go. Like, no problem. So anyway, I respected her decision to run a show like that. It made sense to me. I mean, if you've got product companies coming, the classroom should be reserved for them. They're spending all the money to invest in the show. So I thought, well, I'm going to make a stupid product. So I had started doing some brushes. I started doing some acrylic paints that I was mixing myself. I started doing the nail specs, and it just started snowballing. And then between going on like Nailed It on the Oxygen Network and everything else, it just started like snowballing. And then we were the first company in the United States to have the silver chrome. And when that happened, it was just like complete insanity. I never in a million years thought that this would happen. Nor did I, I don't want to, I didn't want it to happen really. It's a huge blessing that it did, but it wasn't like what I had set out to do. I was like, I just need some money to start my school, you know? And by that time, Jan Arnold was like, you need money? Like, I've got you. How much do you need? Like, I'll be an investor. And at that point, I was like, no, because I didn't know her, and I was worried that she was going to attach all sorts of strings to it. And I was like, I don't want, just the same thing. If I'm going to do this, I want to be the boss, and I want to be the decision maker about everything. And I don't want some company saying, well, since we're, financially sponsoring you or whatever, like, you have to use our products. And so I really stood by that. And stuck to my guns. And several people approached me wanting to invest and and I was like, no, thank you. So
Yeah.
That's how that happened.
And it's exploded since there. I've heard many times educators always say they faked it till they maked it. And so, along the way, like you said, this path was created for you, but it seemed like you just kind of almost had to fake it and say, okay, I'm here. I made myself get here. And now what am I going to do to make it? And so being able to keep the mindset that you did obviously steered you in the right direction of just staying true to who you are and not, taking somebody else's path. And that's so inspirational, Lauren. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's been a lot of doors. And it was funny because I wanted to be an educator and nobody wanted me. Nobody wanted me. It was like, oh, you can't, you're pastoring a church, you can't work Sundays. No, we don't want to. I swear I knocked on every company's door. And then, 6 months later, I enter Next Top Nail Artist and my work gets displayed all over the place. And then everybody wanted me. And I thank God that by that time, I had enough understanding of how the industry worked to know that if I was going to go join up and be an educator with a company, that I would have to completely sell out and promote their stuff, even if I didn't love it. That's what educators, that's a big part of their job. It's sales. It's not just educating. Yeah. You get paid as an educator because of product sales. So you have to sell too. And it was I just was to the point where I had just enough understanding to know that that wasn't the path that I wanted to take. And like I said, I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so since then, we've seen you all over the place, all over the world, from Argentina. I think you even said Italy. We've seen you all over the United States. And the fun part about it is that you I've seen your booth. I've tried to approach you before in the past at your booth. There's always the longest line hovering all the way around the Wildflowers booth. They're so excited to see your new releases. They're so excited to be a part of you and in your area, and then to see, your art, because your art is very unique, and it expands those boundaries of not just what we see on Pinterest and what our client brings in. It's beyond that. And so I love the fact that, each time that I've seen your booth, it's just been packed, no matter where we go, even at nail camp, everybody's around Lauren's booth. And so that proves that how you teach, like some people they're really good at teaching, but they don't know how to get it across, and they don't know how to demo at the same time, and they don't know how to stay focused like that. Sometimes I'm that way. And so you've been able to work it out and figure it out. And then a lot of the things that you teach and you offer at these different shows is completely free education. And so I love that you've stayed true to your vision from the very beginning of making sure the education gets out there properly. And then the rest of it ties into, the different product lines and stuff like that. So how do you choose what products to carry?
Say it one more time, because you broke up a little bit. How do I choose?
Sorry. How do you choose what products you're going to carry in your store? Because whatever you choose ends up becoming the next, big fave. So how do you choose?
That one's tricky. Really, I still have the heart of a nail tech, so it's fun to get products that maybe we already have and just mess around with them and figure out what type of like weird unconventional things we can do with them. We're at the point now where brushes drove me crazy. A lot of companies I wanted good art brushes, and we were forced to like go to the craft store, buy craft store brushes, and then cut them ourselves, was like what we were working with back when I started things. And that was the first thing that I was like, okay, this has to change. I don't want to have a set of art brushes that are all black, so that and then with weird names on them, I'm trying to remember, and it's not, the word association game isn't working to where I can remember the names of brushes on the brushes. So for me, when I was working, what I would do is I would color code my brushes, either by gluing crystals to them, just something so that I associated the color. And also, I'm like, why would a brush not have a lid? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because all of us go, you throw your brush in your purse because you want to do your nails at home or whatever, or somebody's coming to town and you got to pack your stuff up. And it's your brush, you'd pull it out and it would be like this. So I'm like, we need art brushes with lids. We need art brushes that are colorful so that when we go to work with them, we can be quick and just grab I know I need the gold brush. I'm going to just reach for my gold brush because I know what it's like when I open the lid. So I started with that mentality, trying to fix things that I felt were very obviously broken in our industry. Why hasn't somebody thought of it? It's not rocket science. I started there, and now we're to the point where we're established enough that we're really trying to kind of take our time. There's trends that are popping up in the industry, and people are jumping on them quickly. And what's happening is they're jumping on so quickly that they're maybe not producing a quality product. They're just jumping on the trend. So we're now in a position where we're stepping back, and if we see something that's a trend that looks cool, it's taking off, we're really taking the time to source quality materials to make ours out of. Inks, for example, we took forever launching inks because it's really easy to just fill bottles with alcohol inks, which aren't cosmetic. They're non-toxic, but there's a difference between and the ASTM standards of non-toxic for the craft store versus what we're putting on our nails or on our face or on our skin or whatever.
Yeah.
So understanding that and trying to source for materials that are approved for use in cosmetics, stuff like that, it takes longer. But at the end of the day, I feel like if the FDA ever was to really truly crack down on stuff like that, they're very strict in Europe. And I want our products to be able to go there. They're not so strict here, but should they become strict, we'll be good. Like, I don't have anything to worry about. I've got MSDSs, I've got ingredients lists. Like, so we're slowing down a little bit and focusing more on, like, yes, this is a cool trend. We agree with it, but now let's source and source like responsibly and get the stuff that's the good stuff quality wise, but also the stuff, you know, that's the best and stuff that's approved for use in cosmetics. So that's kind of where we're at as a company right now. You're frozen. Okay, I'm just gonna wait. She says she's in the valley, in a deep, deep valley between two mountains.